But seems like Derxello has a pretty good chance. But I also feel like it's very entirely up to draws, right? Because Control Haven, at least right now as it stands, there is a lot of opportunity for it to build up a very strong board early on and have enough to just kind of run you over. If any evidence of that was last week when it was playing Seraph, they didn't even need to... Is somebody playing Dragon?
Whoa, 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 wait a minute.
What's
Not
happening?
my Shadowverse.
Tell me what's happening, Envy.
I don't know. I don't. I think actually no. Derxello. Okay, this makes sense. This makes total sense because Derxello's not playing three combo decks. He's playing PDK Dragon plus 2 combo decks. So just because, like I said, Baad doesn't want 3 combo decks, so he gave Derxello the aforementioned PDK that always banned the forbidden one, just because it's not a combo deck. So.
I would say also Baad perhaps looking between these 3. Perhaps he realizes, yes, PDK is a very difficult matchup probably to last out with a control deck sometimes. But when it comes to choosing your opponent between PDK and D-Shift, when you have brought nothing but control with no tech whatsoever to try to be able to play aggressively down on an opponent, I think this D-Shift ban makes a lot of sense.
Definitely, definitely. And even if Baad's Bloodcraft deck were to take a hit against this PDK deck, he does have access to quite a lot of Bane to try and handle the Atomy if it's too slow out of Derxello. So Baad, he might just have a pretty good matchup here.
Now looking at...
This is looking kind of weird, though. Derxello's got 2 Star Phoenixes in his hand that aren't really doing much of anything, so...
Derxello's list and how he builds PDK, and there are a couple of variants. His does seem to be on the reactive side. He runs a lot of late game finishers, and he seems to put a greater focus on them rather than on comboing with PDK itself.
Double Forte with 3 evolves available. He could opt to go for just double Forte 14 face if he wanted to, but that's not the correct play against Control Blood most of the time, as they can just flip that on you pretty hard once they're in Vengeance, so...
Is going to take a shot here, knowing Baad is not in Vengeance, is going to challenge him. And amount of Sybil that he knows is large enough to trade back against a Scarlet Sabrura if Baad tries to go for something like that. I like this evolve a lot.
Pretty solid play. Even trades against the Belphegor, but you don't want to play Belphegor anyway because your hand is too full, so...
Right.
Kinda
and
awkward.
without something like a Mask in hand to negate a burst of damage, dropping himself to 10 against an opponent who was right on the edge of playing Fortes, I think even for a list with as much healing as Baad's Control Blood, still is just too difficult for him to really commit to.
I agree completely. He does go for the Sad Orb play, like you said, just kind of using an Evolve Orb to get rid of the follower, so... Not quite the best play in the world, but he has to go for it.
Now Derxello is starting to play out his Fortes and get this damaged face in response to forcing Baad to play out a slow turn like that. But this not really being an explicit aggro deck itself on the side of Derxello, I think the amount of damage between these Fortes is not by itself going to be enough to count Baad out of this one yet.
Right. Control Blood has a great answer to Forte in Diabolic Drain, so this isn't that big of a deal at all.
I suppose a
I imagine Derxello's probably going to try and hope that he doesn't have too many answers here. He could even... He could go Blood Moon. Next turn, he can Blood Moon evolve the Righteous Devil, and then also cast another Diabolic Drain, so... He's in a pretty good spot, honestly.
Goes for it right now. Perhaps still just going to go for a Diabolic Drain and let this turn go. Figures he's already at a high amount of health. Even if Derxello were to throw in another Forte, he is getting low on his evolves. Surely the damage has to stop eventually.
Well, actually, he now has a Dragoon Scythe there available, so going face for, what is that, 11 would put his opponent at 4. But he does just have Diabolic Drain into Righteous Devil healing for 6, so I don't think it's that big of a deal.
It does challenge Baad a little bit, even were he to go for that. He has to aim that Diabolic Drain at the Forte, and the Scyther would take out the Righteous Devil on the way down. So I guess the most important detail for us to watch for at this point is how much more damage Derxello can draw for. His Draconic Fervor becomes an important piece of the puzzle here too, but really it just comes down to speed and immediacy of the damage he can deal.
And I think Derxello is going for the I hope you don't have enough healing play of evolving the Forte, giving up all his evolves, going face for the full 11 like I mentioned. Oh gosh.
It is a lot, but really I find it hard to nail this one. So how much healing can he manage to do this turn? He has 1. Well, now that he has a mask as well, I think the combination of the Diabolic Drain, the Righteous Devil with his last evolve point, and the mask means Baad has absolutely nothing to worry about. Any sort of burst damage coming from Derxello, who is out of Evo points, is now sealed by the mask as he can continue to heal. Temptress Vampire next turn.
Especially because, yeah, Temptress Vampire will come down the following turn. Yeah, this is pretty much over.
Perfectly safe position to be in, I think. Baad, by not banning Dragon, has actually made a very fantastic call here. I wasn't expecting to see this matchup. Looks so manageable for him.
Righteous Devil's a pretty good card. Obviously not evolving into the Bane, I would imagine. Just hitting the Star Phoenix, so...
Leaving this as a 4-5 on board that Derxello has to trade into anyway, lest risk Baad coming back up to nearly 3/4 of his health again, after throwing away 2 of his strongest sources of burst.
And this is, Derxello will probably share my pain against Control Blood. They heal back to full after you spend so many resources on their life total. I imagine his turn will involve a Draconic Fervor. Just to get some cards. Yeah, there we go. Bahamut's a pretty good card, actually.
Right. The only threat negation I can see from Baad there that perfectly answers Bahamut would be that Emeralda. So, now with what Baad is starting to figure out, I think he's switching gears into plan B. Can he actually win by grinding this out? He does run 3 Bahamuts, Derxello, I believe.
Ooh, oh my gosh, Bahamuts as well.
Right. It seems we're shifting now, completely shifting gears into the control mirror. Let's just forget about everything that happened up to this point. Baad just healing that all back off.
Interesting that he chooses to go for a Belphegor instead of just slapping down a spawn, but he does get rewarded for it by finding another Righteous Devil, which has to be removed.
Right. I suppose going for a play like this forces Derxello's hand very much. He says you have to have a Bahamut. Is the only thing that can really effectively clear this, but that plays directly into his own Bahamut or his Emeralda, as he pleases.
I imagine he might just save this Diabolic Drain. He doesn't gain too much by casting it, but he does just use it. Okay. He'll fall out of Vengeance, however, if Bahamut is played, so the Emeralda can't go face.
Well, I don't disagree completely with the Diabolic Drain. I can see him feeling a bit nervous there. I think at the same time, with the mask on the board, and knowing the Bram Dragon Keeper list isn't really one that gets a lot of leeway off of an attacker after it's been resolved, it just makes me wonder. Because it did take him, it is 4 loss damage here, and I would like to observe to see how this branches out as the game goes on. Another Bahamut's pretty huge.
Second Bahamut, obviously not going to be played, I don't think, yeah. Genesis Dragon is a great card to have drawn, though. Derxello just found his out right there. If he can get the Bahamut out of Baad's hand, he could end the game.
I like this ordering. Make sure that he gets that Star Phoenix value as it refunds itself with his other one, with this Breath of the Salamander.
I wanted to double check that Derxello wasn't our dragon player that was just playing ramp. He actually is playing PDK. He's looking for his PDKs eventually, so.
Right. Now, plenty of threats in Baad's hand.
I love the spawn play. I love it. Even if Bahamut's played, it pushes face damage, which is great. Oh, okay, Vampir's Kiss. Okay, yeah, that's good.
The Genesis Dragon was just a little bit off there.
Yeah, it was a little too scary. I almost was scared of it.
It could be a big deal somewhere down the road. It could duplicate his last Forte if he finds it anytime soon. I suppose now having burst damage after Baad is getting to the near end of his healing, or to heal he has to commit an entire turn to a vampire. Now, whether he wants to play this Bahamut into the spawn, which goes into Baad's Bahamut, huge decision for Derxello to make here.
I imagine he'll actually just go face with Genesis Dragon this turn. Spawn doesn't do as much as it used to. Still does, I think 11. But, yeah. He doesn't die to really anything, so.
I suppose his consideration here is that he knows, despite any amount of healing that
Yeah,
Baad
boy, Smork play.
And he also realizes if this Genesis Dragon on any in any way manages to survive, he has such an excess of damage. So I suppose this forces Baad's hand the most. And I speak.
Very interesting turn ahead of him. He definitely. Ooh, okay. Okay, so he's gonna choose nice healing, a healing cut combined with attack of the spawn to push 5. So, yeah, to clear that. This does leave up a Forte top deck as lethal though. So.
Indeed, so that was a
Close.
very interesting way to play that out. He decides he must conserve his Bahamut, perhaps after seeing one, or no, he hasn't seen one from Derxello yet. But he is probably wary of this deck list. He knows there's 3. He realizes once a Bahamut resolves, he has no more ways to heal himself over it or manage to get away from that threat.
Looks like Derxello's just going to clear this off the board and then go for a Dragon Oracle after drawing last to get both those Phoenixes back.
But I like this play very much. It's very conservative. Realizing he has to be patient here because he doesn't really have a threat that wins the game anytime soon.
Very quick. Very, very quick. Set up for lethal next turn for Baad.
Right. Which tells you that Baad is itching to get these spawns out. He knows the amount of damage he's going to get off of them is huge in the context of this game.
Derxello has to either heads up heal or Bahamut in anticipation. I'm sure he knows, obviously, what Baad's deck is capable of. He's seen Temptress Vampire, so he knows. Okay, goes for Bahamut.
Right. Derxello not willing to take that risk. And I completely agree with this, but it is sinking his position slowly, even though he has a bit of a card advantage. The finishers are really what are going to start to decide this.
This will come out with probably a Sybil Dragoon Scyther, which will get answered by the Temptress Vampire, which will get answered by probably Dragoon Scyther.
I suppose this search actually matters quite a bit. Still no Prime Dragon Keeper along the lines of that.
Right,
but...
yeah, Derxello still has not found a Prime Dragon Keeper, which is the funniest thing, to be completely honest. He goes for the dig even again. Wow. He finds one.
That
okay.
Could be pretty huge. I'm not sure if he would want to play it this turn at all. I don't think so. Because upcoming after he's done dealing with this Bahamut, the rest of Baad's finishers actually do fall in that range of Prime Dragon Keeper with the remainders of his hand being able to answer pretty cleanly.
Pure-Hearted Singer, both players less than half their decks left.
Well, now that we know that Derxello has developed into a Prime Dragon Keeper, I guess now a really, really important piece of Baad's strategy is how is he going to finish this out? He's used 2 of his spawns. Used 1 Temptress Vampire.
This seems like a fairly obvious Saboteur to me. If he wants to go really hard into not caring about milling himself, he could go Baphomet, Harsinger, Saboteur. And an Emeralda, okay.
Emeralda and Temptress Vampire together are a very, very close. Like, on them alone and not needing any other help, sets Derxello to 1. So I suppose this heightens the importance of Derxello being able to keep this board clear, so as to not let anything deal damage to him. But I think Prime Dragon Keeper is going to create that for him pretty handily.
This is also pretty great for Derxello. If the Ivory Dragon cycles into a second PDK, he could drop that and be pretty resistant. He could still do it with this Dragon Summoner.
2 left in the deck, only 13 cards. You could even find Forte with it, and that's a pretty big deal as well. A lot of good options here.
Another
And
Dragon
he
Summoner.
gets another
Could dig again. That's probably the correct play. You don't care about the Scyther, probably. You want to save that. Oh, Starfingers instead. Okay.
Care to touch? There is nothing to be afraid of.
Alright, that is a lot of pressure, but at the same time, it puts Baad into Vengeance. his revelation now actually found gives him an answer to this, and there's not any amount of damage in Derxello's hand that completely takes care of Baad here. But if he were to
Not
draw...
yet, but if he goes for the Revelation Belphegor, which looks like the possible play this turn, there's a 1 in 12 chance he just dies to the top deck of Derxello on Forte, so... That is an ever-looming threat for Baad, and I think he knows that. He's probably counted the Fortes being used. Genesis Dragon, I'm not sure if Derxello has more than one. I could double-check.
Only one copy, but I can confirm there is a third copy of Forte waiting in these last few cards. Though a Dragon Summoner pulling it next turn, if he doesn't happen to draw it, wouldn't be quite fast enough, because he wouldn't be able to play it with the Erd on the same turn.
Right. But, I mean, realistically, having it in your hand is better than not having it in your hand, so...
Absolutely.
And, ooh, Staircase, that's huge. That basically guarantees that it happens next turn.
Now that means the most important question is whether Baad can prevent it, and he knows that there's probably healing waiting behind what Baad has here. He has a Temptress Vampire, a Scarlet Subruler. He can easily escape the range of that combo, assuming that Derxello does have to clear here.
I like this a lot. Derxello going for the Enhance into Sybil that he saved the entire game. He's fairly safe. Even though Emeralda pushes a lot here, so does Temptress Vampire.
It's a huge amount of burst being lost there, but it saves him from any degree of combos I can imagine here. But I think the Prime Dragon Keeper is a very...
Ooh, gosh.
He actually
Bahamut looks fine on this board, but again, this actually looks pretty weird now.
Right. Goes for the Bahamut first. Decides being able to resolve this is one of the biggest deals he can have, and Baad now having healed out of Vengeance no longer has the burst damage. Well, he has two copies of Blood Moon to interrupt that train of thought, so he does continue to develop the damage from Emeraldas here.
Right, Vengeance is pretty trivial to him at the moment since he does have double Blood Moon in his hand, so...
He doesn't have the last point of damage he needs after the next Emeralda, so unless Baad has some... Let's see. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Does he really have to resolve an attacker here in order to finish off Derxello? Because that could be a very big deal.
I'm not sure if he does. Derxello can't play Dragon Summoner. He can't play... I guess he could play Ayala and Dragoon Scyther, but going face with Scyther would set him up for lethal. The Mask is probably going to stall him long enough to just lose to himself, his deck. I guess you could play Dragon Summoner here if you really felt like it.
Seems so dangerous
This is
to do
interesting,
so.
however.
Right. Gives up this Dragoon Scyther to protect himself and heal. But as you said, clock is ticking on him.
Clock's ticking on both players. The last Bahamut. I don't think there's any Dragoon Scythers left. Oh no. What a way to lose. That would be so unfortunate.
Has he played all 3 Dragoon Scythers this game? I feel like we've definitely seen 2.
Yes.
Yeah, if that's the
I
case.
think he has, yeah.
If that's the case, then he's not going to kill it with ticks from the Prime Dragon Keeper in any way.
No, he would need 7 shots, which is not going to happen.
But I wonder if Baad does not know this, if he expects anything else. Then is Bahamut his best shot here? There's something I was noticing earlier. This Emeralda does push a lot of damage. It swings the board once again. But this is also a kind of play that requires that he attack again, which assumes that Derxello doesn't have answers, and this is easier to deal with Prime Dragon Keeper, though that itself then plays into Bahamut.
Right. However, I mean, if you Prime Dragon Keepers, and then Bahamut is played, he'll die to Forte, so...
Indeed.
The problem with the Prime Dragon Keeper is that the Dragon Summoner has to summon a 3rd shot.
I'm trying to rack
Since
my brain.
BDK isn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he's going to go for the gamble. This is a gamble, I'm pretty sure.
I'm looking through his list and so, okay.
You got
the
a second PDK, that's great. That actually pushes the extra damage as well.
Absolutely. I think I'm trying to wonder if not for the PDK, what other
Oh wait, so he didn't have an
Dragoncraft
extra
followers are
mana.
left.
He couldn't actually... He didn't have the extra play point. He was on 5, not 6, so he couldn't play PDK Ayala.
Oof. That said, there's still not the last point of damage that Baad would need, or the last couple points of damage that he needs. Still needs to find some other source of damage, which means mounting something like a Bahamut that he knows Derxello can't deal with is something, but perhaps Baad could also just simply take the route of clearing here and trying to keep himself alive with the mask, and just simply wait for Derxello to deck himself.
I think Sabor Mask is just the play this turn, and go face for 4. Set up lethal for yourself.
Alright. Lots of routes to a very close victory here.
Derxello also cannot draw any more cards. We revelates the board. Wow. Oh my gosh.
So he wants there to be absolutely no mistake that he could possibly make with any amount of damage Derxello is capable of. So he decides to both clear the PDK and also, perhaps after this draw, knowing how close this game is to ending, I wonder if he throws down the mask here. I know that's definitely the card his eye is on right now.
I imagine he does. I think his plan was to clear the board this turn, clear the board next turn, and have mask on the board, so...
It seems like the perfect time to do it, as next turn would be his last after he just simply has to click a button to beat Derxello.
Quite a few uncastable spells in Derxello's hand. He could go double Star Phoenix, however, to get rid of Belphegor, but the mask is just too much for him.
Right.
Care to touch?
And now just about anything that Baad does seals the game.
Though I wonder if in this circumstance, he plays the Bahamut. I think it is not particularly significant whether he does or not. He knows that it's very unlikely that 13 damage can be extracted with no evolve points left. So he just throws it down
exactly
finally.
that, yes.
And challenges Derxello to say, this is your last turn. If you don't have it now, then I've simply won.
Puts Derxello on 0 cards, but will actually just kill him with Bahamut's attack, which is just...
His alternate win condition has been achieved here. Though I wonder if there was any point where Derxello could have gleaned those last 3 points of damage. A lot happened in this game.
Right. It is, usually when both players when one player goes through their entire deck, basically both players did go through their entire deck. Passes turn, doesn't even bother doing anything. There's always the chance that, one or two turns or one sequence of plays could have changed the outcome. Both players were at 3 before one of them died, so every point of healing obviously mattered.
I wonder, in the first act of this game, as I can call it, when Derxello was sending all of his Evo points into his original Fortes, I wonder if he had chosen to play a bit more conservatively there, would that have made a difference? But anyway, I think the highlighted decision of that game was actually just simply Baad's decision to let that deck through and the confidence that he'd be able to take care of it in that matchup, which he perfectly did fine.
It is possible, since he evolved early enough to give Baad full value on every heal, it is possible that he could have eked a bit more damage by forcing Baad to sort of overheal, if you will, by not evolving, but... Now we have PDK Dragon versus this mid-range sort of Control Haven. It's like a control, it's not a mid-range, it's Control Haven, yeah.
Right. Now, this one is something that I think Derxello has a bit more of a fighting chance against, just in that, as we've seen Baad playing this versus Sword earlier, it seems that he does want to hold onto the board just a little bit more. A lot of his damage against that matchup earlier came from the Tiger from this very Beast Call area.
I always feel bad when I play this matchup myself, but I do agree. I think that, wow, the triple banish. I was going to mention that the early game actually goes pretty far. If Ayala comes down for Dragon, it comes down to Haven to banish that, to slow them down a bit, and he has 3 options for that, so...
Dragon Oracle and Ayala, it's 2 pieces of ramp at the moment. If he plays
There's
this
the Ayala, it'll get banished for sure.
Right. If it managed to survive, that would be an immense amount of ramp with the Erd. But he is pretty low on cards here.
Also denies the staircase for a little while too. Banishment staircase requires destruction, so another Ayala. Get ready to get banished.
Good try.
Oh, he actually
something-
didn't play Ayala. Interesting.
Perhaps after seeing a banish come down once is now a bit more self-conscious of it. I'm thinking one possibility is that he might wait until turn 7 to play it with the Erd. And that would just completely fill out his play points and would help him with staircase along that same line.
It's possible. He can also just evolve it into Cudgel this turn if he wanted to really force it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
Looks like
and he can
that's
get
going to be the
draw.
play, which will put him into Overflow, which will allow this Dragon Oracle to cycle itself.
Mhm. So it seems that Derxello has more or less completed his resource collection. He has a lot going on here. The staircase popping soon, PDK primed, Forte, and Erd as a finisher. So Baad, who has still mostly just reacted this game, is going to need to find some way to defend himself soon. As I say that, there's Temple Defender. Though,
Temple will
Even
defend
with-
me sometime soon.
even with an effect like that, it doesn't, well, with the staircase not having popped, the Prime Dragon Keeper is not really an option, so I suppose Derxello, if he wants to get rid of it as a high priority, would use his second evolve point. But,
Right, which is very awkward. So I imagine Sybil Pass is going to be his play, if I had to guess.
if he feels pressured to do anything, which is fair versus as controlling and strong of a late game deck as this Havenless.
Goes for the evolve. I guess he felt like a Tribunal could come down and put him further behind, so.
I've said my last prayer.
Now, is this the time for Acolyte's Light to shine? It seems like one of the most solid plays for Baad to make. Yeah, he goes for it.
Yep, goes for it. Solid, just even the board, pass your turn.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it really starts to get mind gamey, though. An amazing PDK hand is formed in Derxello's hand. He's got 10 play points available to him. He could flood the board, go super wide if he wanted to, which would be great against Baad's hand, but he doesn't know that. Baad is a faction that has access to the infamous Themis' Decree. So it'll be interesting to see what play Derxello tries to go for. If he tries to go for the Ford, not the Ford play, Erte Ford, Forte Erd play, or the more go wide play. I'm sorry. I
Right.
combined their names like 4 times.
Though, something very interesting about that is when the opponent, or when Baad is still at 20 health here and he has so many different options of how to develop, it just makes me,
Right.
it leaves me to wonder whether he prioritizes getting the damage immediately, and that seems to be it. Okay, I agree with this a lot, actually. I feel that getting that damage in when Baad still doesn't have much he can do, you still have a lot of time before Baad reaches a win condition.
I
Saves
actually like
the
passing too. The Erd push doesn't really matter here. I love that. That was incredible.
Mhm. I think
However,
that's
this
the
does
right-
just lead to Cleric Lancer Black and Scripture Pass, probably.
So I'm predicting now that it seems Derxello will get a lot of damage out of these Fortes, but the real challenge comes in finding the last bit of damage after that. It leads me to wonder if Prime Dragon Keeper alone is enough. Because it seems that he would be forced into using it here in order to deal with this.
Right. PDK only needs 3 shots to kill that. Pushes him down to 12 also, which is dangerously close to the Forte Erd combo killing him.
Care to touch?
And a very clean path of using it with these Ivory Dragons now. Doesn't
Mhm.
have to really commit any resources, doesn't mind if this gets cleared, he has a lot more coming.
Could even play Staircase, so if the board gets wiped, it's down 4 or 5 lower, so.
Care to touch?
Very nice. I actually really like keeping the Ivory Dragon there as well, since it is a 1 play point sort of cantrip available later.
If he finds another Prime Dragon Keeper, it's really good to hold low-cost followers like that. So 2 more damage, and he has it with his combo. Meanwhile, on the side of
This
Baad,
is
he's
looking
only-
pretty bad for Baad. No pun intended. He doesn't actually have any clear available to him. He could cudgel, but I mean that doesn't handle anything on this board, and he'll die. So
We see some utility in that Acolyte's Light can be aimed at Prime Dragon Keeper, but that's not really the matchup winning play here at all. Hmm. Seems
This is definitely a interesting situation. I think Curate is Curate the safest play? I think it is. Yeah.
right. It's a lot of health gained, and Derxello's hand isn't currently looking towards regenerating itself. He has a limited board space, so this could trade for a lot of Derxello's cycling. At the very least, does not put him into the combo range just yet.
Second Bahamut's not going to do too much for him.
Mhm.
Ivory Dragon, okay.
Care to touch?
And do another Ivory Dragon, okay. Nice.
So
There's
I
likely going to be a
wonder-
turn where he just chips in damage. I don't think he's going to do too much other than that.
No reason to commit any other resources, such as his forte.
Ooh, oh my gosh. Those Scythers are great. Since you drew two of them, you can expend one of them here and get that extra face damage in. That's actually perfect.
Care
That
to
puts
touch?
Baad just 1 point out of range.
Right, puts him at 11. If Themis is top decked, he's fine, but if he doesn't get one, I think he just loses on the spot.
Right. Mounting Aegis here is not really a big deal, and does just simply lead to
Another Ether of the White Wing drawn 3 in a row.
That
Take this
is a
man to the
way.
casino. Oh my gosh.
Right. It is a way to get a ward onto the board, but that is not exactly the damage reduction he needs here. With a Bane threatening him.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that's just going to leave up 1 damage on the board, which will leave up the Forte Erd combo for exact lethal. Ooh, oh my gosh.
Right. So interesting that his Haven as compared to his Blood, really not as a matter of access to wards or healing, but just the inability to play it all at once seems to be what took him out here.
Right, also top decking 3 Ether of the White Wing in a row was
Right. A little bit unfortunate.
probably fairly instrumental in his loss, I would say.
Yeah. It seems that Heavenly
Lethal
Aegis.
feels good, man. So now we have a Shadow versus Haven matchup, which is notoriously abysmal for Shadow, except this is Atomy Shadow, so.
Hmm.
How do you think this
I guess this
matchup
comes
goes,
down-
Mofu? What do you think's gonna happen?
Off the top of my head, I think the only pure answer we see in Baad's list to an early enemy is going to be Acolyte's Light, meaning that something very important for Baad is drawing enough answers that he can delay enemy until just around that turn 5 range when he can afford his answer to it. But there are also times when enemy lists are not just about the early enemy, but convert into tyrants later. I think he has a pretty fair advantage here.
Right, he does also have Tribunal, but yeah, the only pure answer would be the only targeted answer would be the Acolyte's Light.
A Demon Eater and a Little Soul Squasher are useful pieces, but I don't think that they're parts of what the deck can bring early on to get an enemy out earlier than an opponent can deal with it.
Oh, Globes into a Tribunal, and he's on the play, so this is looking really good for Baad already.
Mm-hmm.
Even has Black
Derxello
and
not-
Scripture for the turn 2 Andrelphus. This is looking incredibly good for Baad.
Mm-hmm. He can even simply choose to trade into it. I think Baad has a lot of flexibility in how he can approach this at the moment. Perhaps Derxello is playing Little Soul Squasher because he doesn't see it giving him very much value later, but also because he fears Black in Scripture and wants to pressure Baad into using it if he wants to keep his Unica there. But not going to work. Double Defender can resolve this threat just as easily. Or he does trade
And
into
trade
it, actually.
anyway. Why not? You know, deny Atomy as long as possible. Double Tribunal takes care of it if ever happens by accident. He draws into a second Deathly Tyrant, cluttering his hand immensely.
Mm-hmm. No real methods of putting these shadows together from this hand. Andrew Alpha is something you'd probably want to save until next turn. And Demon Eater, not really something you can do. I'd say Derxello has done what we could describe as bricking pretty convincingly here.
Derxello is doing what he has become known to do. And
I like
Baad's just gonna pass the turn.
I like that he has already collected all the answers for Lord Enemy, but without providing or without putting on much board pressure at all. Derxello still just has not found a way for it.
Right. Turns out if your opponent doesn't actually play that threat you wanted to answer, you don't have to answer that threat that you wanted to answer. There is
I don't know.
there's a sobering realization in the fact that Androlphus is a great evolve if you top deck a 1-drop here, in the sense that it also can't evolve into Temple Defender.
Mm-hmm.
And a Staircase is drawn, that's actually fairly okay.
Perhaps he goes with this Androlphus. No, just simply looking for more cards. Realizes there's probably not much
Staircase.
value
Ooh,
to...
okay, so he's got enemy next turn. Next turn he can play it.
Right.
Yeah, we'll just die though, unfortunately. Black and Scripture could just Tribunal this, honestly. Black and Scripture at pass.
Mm-hmm. I imagine the only real way to get around a Tribunal when trying to play an enemy is to try to summon it upon some skeletons as well. But even that seems to be a little much to ask.
That was interesting. Just throw the frog into it and pass. Okay.
It seems Baad is playing very confidently. He's saying that he doesn't need to apply any early pressure at all. He's noticed Derxello's lack of initiative at the moment. So simply getting rid of any initiative Derxello can mount whatsoever gives him the confidence to just simply hold all of his removal. He can deal with anything. And he has his win condition in hand, or a way to build towards it.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of odd for Derxello. He could assemble Atomy this turn, but it would require him overdrawing a lot of cards next turn. It would have gave him access to a lot of shadows, which is probably what he actually wants, as his main win condition is probably going to end up being the Tyrant.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how much he intends to play around. Seems like he's just simply going to go for it, actually.
Yep, just going to do it. I mean, why not, right?
It's a great development of shadows.
Well, the two
Those-
ghosts won't give you the shadows, but not
It's
entirely
something.
bad. This poor Atomy is so dead.
And simply passes it back. Well, not anything else to do. Here's a setup for another
Does not
Atomy.
find a second
and, no
Atomy, so
Atomy.
he can't do the same thing.
Now, this is actually something I'm kind of unfamiliar with, is how an Atomy player needs to find something to spend their time doing for the lack of anything else to do. Because there
Usually
are some
it's
pieces
just try to get the most shadows possible, usually.
right. Which would
Against Haven it's kind
probably
of weird though,
incentivize-
so.
Yeah, I imagine it
Right.
incentivizes him to play something like a Bone Chimera or otherwise, because now seeing the Tribunal there might help him in the future. But it's probably the most important part of his next Atomy. I'm trying to break through my brain of how does he get this last 5 damage, assuming things go best for him, and he does get this Deathly Tyrant out. I suppose he would only need 3 damage to resolve if he has that last Evo point for it and when it works.
Unfortunately for Derxello, though, all of his stuff's gonna get banished, so...
Well, he only needs, what, 13 more?
Yeah, his
Well,
his
lost
shadow
his-
generation and his card cycling has been neutered pretty hard here by Cudgel and the Black and Scripture, but he does have Soul Conversion now, so he could cycle something here. I imagine he's saving both of his evolves for the to do a full 20 with Double Tyrant. He wants to evolve one of them, or evolve both of them rather, and do 15 plus 5. If I had to guess, that's why he's saving all of his evolves.
Finding another way to draw.
Still not finding an Atomy.
Alright, so 8 shadows left and 2 Skull Beasts in hand, one of which could be banished. Means right now on board, it's just about an addition of about 4 shadows, if we count the amulet dying as well.
Right. But the concentration all on Derxello, I mean, Baad's getting up there. He can full heal with Curate this turn, or he could even just, you know, banish and then play an Aether of the White Wing, and then next turn, if he draws Aegis, or the turn after, he can just Aether the White Wing it into play. And he's getting there.
I guess it all
Derxello
really just
hasn't
comes
really
down to...
assembled anything relevant the whole game.
Right. Technically, unevolved Deathly Tyrant into an evolved Deathly Tyrant, assuming this takes place after Curate happens. Well, as much as I try to rack my brain for a way out of this, I think Baad just simply has more than enough resources to deal with any of these possibilities. As you
Mhm.
said, continued wards
Cleric
coming out of
Lancer
Ether.
or a reactionary curate would be pretty hard for Derxello to punch through.
Mm-hmm. Continues to
Ooh,
deny
especially
shadows.
considering he can keep banishing. Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm. Not pressured to make this trade here. The Tribunal popping isn't something that he needs to exact down because he still is not really pressured at all by any large body like Tyrant or Atomy. This firm control of the
This is
board.
quite
nothing
the
he can
interesting
really do.
situation.
Right. Does he really even have a clean way or an efficient way to deal with this Cleric Lancer at all?
No. Well,
Hmm.
you can ignore it with one follower.
You get a very small and easily mitigated amount of damage. I don't think in any universe he wants to trade in this Deathly Tyrant, so I suppose at the moment he just has to take all of this damage and pass initiative back once more.
Mm-hmm. Probably. He can do some chip damage to it with his Haunted House, but he can't do too much else to it.
Mm-hmm.
Could even evolve into it, I guess, with the Bone Chimera, preventing a banish, but not sure if that's the best play.
Mm-hmm. It is significant use.
It is
of
the play he
free
goes for,
resource.
evolving the Goblin, actually.
Gets the tiniest amount of damage available to him by this.
And with all of that work, we get 1 damage face. Easy. Oh, Tyrant! Going in for 3.
4.
Okay, going to cook him for 4. Tyrant will die for free to this Tribunal.
Right. Identifying that he needs that damage as his only way out is relying on this Tyrant. Unfortunately, the Curate takes away all of that work, as Baad needs to put no effort whatsoever
Curate.
into actually dealing
Yes.
with it. Curate.
The extremely anime curate. I like it. I like it a lot. And that's going to be really unfortunate for Derxello. He's drawing a lot of cards this turn, but he's also not doing much else. He can summon Atomy. He can at least remove lethal off the board, I guess, with the Voices of Resentment, but really isn't doing much else.
I feel like... So, at very best, he could, assuming Baad did not have another answer, could clear 2 things. No, no matter how way I try to look, and no matter how I try to split this up in my head, I just think, regardless of whether or not he can activate this Tyrant, it's not going to be nearly enough damage past anything to get past Baad's ability to just
Right,
drop
considering
safely.
your boy Aegis is dropping this turn into an Adago, probably. Yeah, this is going to be game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine that's the play. Evolve the Aegis, evolve anything really, and then play the Dago with Ward. And that's pretty good. That's going to seal the curtain, probably. The Deathly Tyrant can ignore Ward, but it only does 15 damage, which, you know, is kind of an oxymoron, but...
Satisfying to watch at the very least, if nothing else.
If nothing else, exactly. Hopefully he goes for it at least. Hopefully.
I don't imagine the Soul Conversion has anything in particular to draw into that would save him from this. As Lord Enemy, as a deck that plays so much for early pressure and being able to cheat out massive stats, it doesn't really play anything defensive or any plan for a long game like this other than a
Right.
finisher.
There are some builds that do have Spar Toy Soldier, the 1/4 Ward, but Derxello is not running that build, so we're playing that in his build, rather.
Now I wonder
So
if
hopefully he
the
goes for it.
highlight-
He emotes and gets the passive 15, but not
the
much else he can
passive-aggressive.
do. Yeah, the passive aggressive 15 damage.
I've
No big
noticed
deal.
Derxello emotes quite a bit.
No, he's not gonna maybe not do it.
Still could. Certainly still could.
He does actually get ghosts this way, and he didn't hit the ward. He had an extra 1 damage there if he hit a ghost. If he hit the ward, I could go face with a ghost.
I wonder if the highlight of this game, as I continue to try to rack my brain for ways Derxello could have, with the immense amount of damage in his hand,
Yes,
figured out
he's
a way-
gonna do it. Yes! Hit face for 15. Who cares if you lose? Easy.
I wonder if
Not
Baad's
in the ball.
ability to banish and deprive Derxello of shadows was a significant part of Baad winning here.
I mean, definitely. I mean, it stopped Generation of Shadows. It stopped, you know, Staircase triggering as fast as it could have. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was a great. He drew a lot of banishes, really.
There it is. Baad will win, and that was a long series. That was
Oh yeah.
very extended. I guess that's what happens when you play mostly control versus combo. And Baad does move on. She did really well and was able to defeat Derxello, eliminating his opportunity to go back into season